To all the non-believers, 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 non-believers. I'm making out.
What's up, y'all? This is Jay Varsity, and welcome to another episode of NBA Talk. This is episode 128, and we talk straight hoops here. I give game takes, talking about NBA news and all that. And we got quite a few things to go over today. We had some interesting moments last night. It's been a little slow in the NBA, because like I said in my last couple episodes, it's the heat of football. A lot of people are paying attention to football right now, but this is a hoops channel, and we're gonna go over anything that has to do with hoops. So the headline of today's episode, and apparently it will be the headline whenever you mention basketball today, is gonna be the debut of the Brooklyn Nets Big Three and how they unfortunately fell short in double overtime against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm giving my take on that in just a moment, but let's just make one thing clear while I assess this game. This was the Brooklyn Nets' first official game together, and I would have to say, offensively, if you solely look at stats, you think, oh, this team played amazing. They were amazing together. But I'm not saying I beg to differ. I just say that they have some issues to get over. But my official game take is this. The Brooklyn Nets, all the defensive problems that we were talking about, due to miscommunication, all that, not really any chemistry, and just finding where their flow was coming from. It just really threw them off. And I would also have to say this was also bad coaching by Steve Nash. And you clearly saw the lack of coaching experience as you watched this game. My first take I would have to say is, first of all, shout out to Colin Sexton. Shout out to Colin Sexton on a career night. 42 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He just got hot in that second half. He just got hot in that second half. Like that, the Cleveland Cavaliers just put on an absolute show on the Brooklyn Nets. It was like they were extra motivated. It was just something interesting, and I don't think a lot of people thought that the outcome was going to be what it was. If a lot of people were predicting this, they were probably predicting Brooklyn was going to win this in a blowout. But that's not exactly what we got. And like I said, the defensive issues are why. Hence, the one mistake that Brooklyn was constantly making is they kept dropping on shooters. Every time during a pick and roll, while Colin Sexton was asking for a pick and roll from Andre Drummond, it was either DeAndre Jordan dropped, Kevin Durant dropped, or James Harden didn't fight over a screen, or Kyrie Irving wasn't able to fight over a screen. It was just lack of effort on the defensive end of the floor, and you clearly saw it. And lack of size, too, because Cleveland's big men were just bullying their way through the paint. Like, from Jared Allen to Andre Drummond to Larry Nance Jr., they were just bulldozing their way to the paint. They were attacking the paint at all costs. At one point, KD was playing the 5, and he was getting bulldozed by Jared Allen. So this is some of the issues that I mentioned in my NBA rant video last week that I said that Brooklyn was going to have. I knew these issues were going to happen. Now, are they going to happen very often? Because their offense is going to be so elite that they might have nights where their offense is going to save them. Yes, Brooklyn is going to have nights where their offense is going to save them. But I don't believe that this, like I said in my rant video, I don't believe in this mentality that trying to solely outscore your opponents by putting up as much offense as possible is gonna work. You got to get a stop, and that's what they failed to do against Cleveland. They failed to get stops, and the lack of coaching experience is showed because Steve Nash, he really did not know what to do when the Cleveland Cavaliers got hot, specifically Colin Sexton. You're watching Colin Sexton literally work on each of your stars. He put each of them in an isolation and scored on them at will. And you could say, yeah, he was just having a hot night and all that. But as a coach, you have to know when to call a timeout. You gotta try to find some way of a defensive scheme, because if you know if it's just one guy killing you, then you got to find a way to smartly trap a guy who's killing you in isolations. If I see Colin Sexton taking Kevin Durant one-on-one, and I just saw him hit a step-back three over my best player, you have a problem. He hit a step-back three over Kyrie. He hit a step-back three over Kevin Durant. He worked Jeff Green. He worked James Harden. He was putting in the work. Colin Sexton was in his bag last night, and I personally doubt that something like that will happen again, because they do have to play Cleveland again, I believe tomorrow, if I'm correct. But it was just unbelievable to see, especially what he did in that overtime. He scored 20 straight points. He scored 20 straight points. If I'm not mistaken, did he not make like three or four three-pointers in the overtime, in the second overtime? If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comment section. I'm not perfect, but those defensive errors that I saw, yeah, you could say it was their first game together, but those are alarming to me. Those are very alarming, because they do not have the size and another thing I'm going to address, but the lack of knowing how to space out the minutes between the big three, because it was the big Kyrie, KD, and Harden should not be playing together for damn near 50 minutes. They should not be playing together for more than a whole game. They played more than a whole game's worth of minutes together. And if you're going to have to fight that hard to beat teams on a nightly basis, because as much as you put up points, you give up a lot of points. So if your stars are going to have to play that many minutes to get wins, that's alarming. That's very, very alarming. So these are the things that I mentioned in my rant video that people are really starting to see, and I'm not the only one who said this. The Nets on offense are going to put up numbers. As you saw in the stat lines, KD put up 38, Kyrie put up 37, and James Harden had a 21-point triple-double. So 96 points between the three of them, that's not the problem. Your problem is going to be getting stops, especially in the fourth quarter. If you need to get one or two straight stops, I don't think the Nets can do it as of right now. Now, can I say that 2 months from now, coming March, coming April? I can't speak on that. I can't predict the future. Who knows what the Nets are going to do to change that? Because maybe they won't. Maybe they might tighten up a little bit on the defensive end. But as of right now, I know it was just one game. I'm not going to over-exaggerate it. Anybody could mess up on their first game. Hell, the Miami Big Three did. The Golden State Big Three with KD did. Wasn't anyway. It was just their first game. So let's not act like it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. They're not. It's not like they lost the NBA Finals last night. So anybody who takes this way out of proportion, you're playing yourself. But I do have to say, if we start to see a pattern like this where they beat one team one night and they can't beat a team another night because they can't get stops, that's going to be very alarming, and it's going to be bringing up every point that I made about the Brooklyn Nets. Another thing I would have to say is, like, we're really going to start to see and the questions when it comes to who's going to be the third option, because we clearly did not see Kyrie giving up any shots last night. James Harden had 2 shot attempts in one half last night. Now, James Harden was very determined to get Kyrie the ball, especially since they did that whole tribute video for Kyrie and all that. Kyrie was just trying to put on a show. It was just, it was one of those odd nights because I swore that this looked like a game of 2K the way Colin Sexton was hitting those shots. It just did. It looked like one of those kinds of nights, but I don't know. I don't know. You write in the comments section below. What do you think? Do you think the Brooklyn Nets have some adjustments that they need to make? Because I personally think that they just have to find a way to get consecutive stops, and Steve Nash needs to do better as a coach on when to call timeouts and not play his stars so long. But they barely have any bench depth. He didn't even play Landry Shamet. He barely played anybody on his bench. I think they only played 7 to 8 guys last night. I believe they only played 7 to 8 guys. So that can't keep going as is. Now maybe they do better in the second go around against the Cavs, but if you start playing some of the more elite teams like that, there's gonna be a problem. Anyway, speaking of other big nights, we have Joel Embiid going off for 42 against the Boston Celtics. Now, you know the rivalry between the Sixers and the Celtics. All their games are always heated, and it's always a bunch of trash talking when it comes to the both of them. But on the Celtics end, they didn't have Jason Tatum. But Jaylen Brown did put up 26, and Marcus Smart did put up 25, and Kemba Walker was looking great. And they were winning the majority of this game. And then the Sixers pulled away in the fourth quarter. But my thing that I'm loving, that I'm seeing, and I brought it up in my last NBA talk, is the real emergence of Joel Embiid. He's just playing lights out. He's getting loose. Doc Rivers is playing a system where Joel Embiid can be himself. He's not being forced to go into the post. He's shooting the turnaround fade jumpers I like seeing him take. Joel Embiid finally looks like as if the offense is finally running through him. Ben Simmons did his thing, even though people are saying that he really didn't do much this game. The Sixers defensively, they did what they had to do to stop the Celtics, because the Celtics have a lot of firepower. Now, granted, they need to do this more when Jason Tatum does play, because I personally feel Jason Tatum always gets the best of the Sixers. I feel like he is a Sixers killer. He always manages to put work on anyone on the Sixers. And Tobias Harris is another one that he's much improved from last season. I'm seeing a whole nother Tobias Harris. He's playing a whole lot looser. He's not being stuck to just catch and shoot threes like he was in last year's system. Last year they just did not fit whatsoever, and the Sixers are playing so much better now. It's just surprising how much simple changes can lead to better results. You got rid of Al Horford. You got rid of Josh Richardson. You added Danny Green. You added Danny Green. You added Dwight Howard. You added Seth Curry. You added better shooting. You added better defense. And Shake Milton off the bench is just incredible. He's incredible. He's a great bench piece for them, and I'm so happy to see him putting up the numbers that he puts up. The Sixers, to me, with Joel Embiid's looking like an early MVP candidate, even though it's a little early, but he's putting up the numbers, and they're getting wins with those numbers. And I love seeing him put up those numbers, because Joel Embiid has that kind of talent. He is that kind of player. He should be putting up. He shouldn't be putting up 40 every single night, but he should be giving you somewhat of that form of production every night, because I hardly doubt that there's a lot of big men that can stop Joel Embiid when he's playing like this. This is why I say Brett Brown, in my opinion, was not using Joel Embiid the right way, because he wanted him to get down to the post and be a traditional big man when he's not a traditional big man. He's a stretch big. He's a very talented stretch big. He doesn't play like a normal center that can't shoot from outside of 10 feet away from the basket. He's a big man who has a strong post game, who has a post fadeaway, and can shoot from the top of the key and anywhere on the perimeter. So I like that Doc Rivers has acknowledged that, and he's letting Joel Embiid be himself. The Dallas Mavericks beat the Indiana Pacers. Kristaps Porzingis, since coming back, has been looking great as well. I love seeing Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. They're a very nice combo duo. Luka Doncic had a pretty quiet triple double with 13-point triple double, but Kristaps Porzingis with 27 points. I believe he shot 13 of 15. If I'm correct, if I'm not getting the stats right, please correct me. But yeah, the Dallas Mavericks, even with the pieces that they're missing, they're looking like a whole different team. They look like a completely different team than when it was just Luka carrying the offense. Now, I want to see when Richardson and Powell and all these guys come back from the quarantine protocols and all this other stuff. That I want to see how this team looks when they're fully put together, because I believe this team is going to be dangerous. They're really going to start to take off once all these guys are on the court together, because with just the emergence of Kristaps Porzingis coming back, you see how much different teams got to play them. It's not just let's keep an eye on Luka Doncic. No, you got to look out for Porzingis, because he's another special stretch big. He could pull up anywhere on the floor. He could pull up from mid-range. He could attack the paint. He could shoot. He could pull up deep from three. He's another special talent, and I think a lot of people need to stop sleeping on Kristaps Porzingis, because when he's healthy, he's a dangerous big. He's a very dangerous big, and he could do damage to your team. So, another game I'm gonna go into is the Miami Heat and the Raptors. Oh my God! Finally, the Miami Heat finally found a way to win two in a row. Oh my God, I got tired of seeing them lose. And the Raptors, it was a back and forth game. The Miami Heat still don't have their full roster. The Miami Heat still don't have their entire roster back. They got Bam Adebayo. Tyler Hero didn't play. Jimmy Butler's still not back. It's just been who's been in and out of the lineup every single night. It's like you don't know who's gonna be playing, who's not. Like I said, these protocols have just been a big pain in the butt. It's just, oh my God. I'm just happy Miami won last night, personally, for selfish reasons, because I just wanted to see something of consistency when it comes to Miami, because Miami's a way better team than how they look right now. They're a way better team than what they're showing right now, because that is not who they are. The Toronto Raptors, after going on a short streak, they fell to Miami, and the Toronto Raptors, they're up and down as well. They've been very much up and down as well, and it's just the lack of consistency of not having full rosters. It's in both cases, especially for Miami. Oh my God, like I said, it's just been hurting watching the Miami Heat. It's been very much a pain to watch the Miami Heat when we don't have our full roster to play with, because how are you supposed to beat some of these good teams when we're playing with guys that are coming out of the G League and they haven't gotten real playing time? The Los Angeles Clippers beat the Sacramento Kings. The Clippers did their thing. The Clippers in my book are not getting enough recognition for how much they are improving. They have improved since last year. They're not getting enough recognition. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. Like, nobody is acknowledging that as much. And I feel like last year's hype, because of last year's hype, they're not talking about the Clippers as much, or because of that epic collapse. But this year, they're a much better team. They're a much better team that I would say from last year. especially from a chemistry standpoint. The chemistry between Paul George and Kawhi is very much improved, and overall, they're just a much better team. They're just a much better team. What else can I say about that? I don't know. When it comes to this NBA season, it's just been up and down. It's just very much been up and down. The Phoenix Suns beat the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets are another team that's going to need to get some consistency because of the whole James Harden scenario. That whole James Harden scenario has just shook everybody up. Between the Pacers with Caris LeVert having to deal with that kidney issue, the fact that the added pieces that you got on the Houston Rockets, even though Victor Oladipo has been looking pretty good since he came onto the Rockets, he's looked pretty good himself. Do I think the Rockets are going to be a playoff team? Maybe. They're a little for me right now, but it's way too early to tell in my book. The Phoenix Suns are still playing great basketball, even though they're not on that hot stretch that they were when they were 6-1. I believe that's what they started 7-1, I believe. They're still a really good basketball team. Devin Booker has just been lighting up the place, and the addition of CP3, you're seeing the influence he has on this team. You're very much seeing the influence he has on this team. You're seeing the leadership aspect on the Phoenix Suns. That's what Chris Paul always brings to the table. He brings that leadership. He brings that leadership to push your team to play harder, to never give up on plays, especially on the defensive end of the floor. This is one of the best point guards when it comes to on the defensive end when it comes to getting steals. So, oh my God, what did I really run out of things to say? No, I did not. But yeah, like I said, back to the headline of this episode. Do not let this first game, do not blow this first game out of proportion when it comes to Brooklyn. Yes, Brooklyn did play horrible defensively, but that's always going to be an issue throughout the rest of this season. But the offense, they're going to put up numbers. If we see them put up amazing stat lines, whether it comes in a win or a loss, that's not going to be a surprise to me. But it's always going to be, can they get stops when it matters? Like I said, shout out to Joel Embiid. Shout out to Colin Sexton. Shout out to every player who had big nights last night. It was a great night for the NBA. We got to see a very special trio make their debut. We saw a big night from Colin Sexton. Joel Embiid put up dominating numbers. Like I said, it's great being an NBA fan, but it's just nobody's really talking about the NBA because we're in the heat of football. I bet you anything, probably after the Super Bowl or something, the NBA is going to become the hot trending topic for the next few months. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell if you like basketball content. Stay safe. This is your boy Jay Varsity, and I am out. Peace.
We got some non-believers out there.
Make believers out of non-believers. Make believers out the overseers.